but it's being real nice weather, and I concentrate on my casting because I know I'm not going to catch anything.
Good practice.
Okay.
Sending a couple texts just to make sure get folks on here, and I see somebody trying to connect.
Yeah, I'm going to try and check for some reservations probably tonight, see if I can find any place. So hopefully,
Bennett,
yeah.
I think, well, John had a rain check, so he's trying to use, I think he's going to be on here tonight, but he's trying to use Sand Spring. We are going to Larry's, and Mick and Margie are camping, but I think they probably had it, but for a while. But I think it's something where I've checked the camping a couple of times, and you get those last minute reservations. But if nothing else, Hidden Valley Outfitters, I just, everybody talks about how nice that accommodation is. There aren't very many trees up in the main one where you're having, you know, water and electricity and everything, but Hidden Valley is, it's not bad.
I
And you
like them.
actually don't want the ones with the trees, because you're kind of like this back by a little runoff area. Can get kind of buggy.
Hidden Valley is where they have the trout bust, and everybody raves about the level sites for campers. I always I always camp next to the Niangua.
Yep, it's a good spot. I like them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
they're
people are
very, very
friendly.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
looked there
people are
last
super
night.
friendly.
Yeah, all their full hookups are taken. I couldn't get them for as long as I'd like, but so whether I forego that or otherwise I may have to go out to the KOA that's on the way in or something.
Yeah, on the way in. And then there looks like there's a couple of different ones that we were just down there yesterday, and it looks like a couple new signs up. I don't know, because that's not really what I'm looking for. So I just kind of get it on the, I won't say anything, on the 60 mile an hour driving past it. I kind of go, oh, that looks like, and it's already gone. Because I'm I was the passenger on that excursion. But yeah, I'll keep my ears out. And I think the other thing too is that with, again, the cancellations seem to be kind of short notice, and they're up for grabs real quick, and then they're gone really, really quick. Because I had one for Bennett for actually this past weekend, and by the time I went back to get it, and it was gone. So I think that's a thing too, is people are kind of onto that whole now, you know, keeping an eye out for what's open and what's not. Margie and Mick have good luck with that. I didn't, for trying to camp this past weekend. So we just did St. James,
We booked
which is an
almost a
hour
year
away,
in
and you don't, yeah, that's the whole year. They changed all that. And so it really is, people are putting in, and I guess they figure that the $10 to lose if you cancel it isn't, it's worth just having your spot. But I'll keep my eyes out for anything, and let you know. And if anything else, I think also sometimes just getting on the phone with, because the websites I don't know are 100% correct. And I found that with Hidden Valley. We found that last October, is their website said they were completely full. But then when I called, Hidden Valley wasn't full nearly to even 75% capacity.
Wow.
And a lot has to do with weather, of course. Do we have, is Les on yet?
Yeah.
Yes. Is he doing deer stacking tonight?
It looked like he was set up for a bit.
Good. He was
caught my
doing a lot
first.
of work.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, go,
I'm
Carl.
gonna say it. I just want to let y'all know I caught my first wild trout at Lane Springs Tuesday.
Nice.
All right.
blue wing olive, and everything that everybody says about that river is true. Because once you miss one, just move on. Because
Yep.
or you catch one, you move on. So
Yep.
I went in to the back area about by campgrounds 20 and 21, and just kind of sat there for about 20 minutes to see if there was any activity, and finally saw some fish rising and hitting some stuff. And so I didn't really know what to try because I had never fished there before, but I read on the Trout Hunter to try to blue wing olive, and of course I'm too stubborn. I'm like, well, that can't work. So I'll try my own thing. After about 4 or 5 flies, I said, screw it. I'll put a blue wing olive on that I tied, and went up to a new area where I saw a fish jumping. I casted, I wasn't even in the water. I casted up above a bunch of branches and missed him. And I thought, well, I wonder if he'll give me a second shot. So 2 or 3 casts later, I nailed him and pulled him in. He's about 11 inches, and the colors on those fish are so weird over there. They're not like really bright colored. And for 11-inch fish, he fought like the dickens because, you know, he went sideways on me. And I was like, well, that must be a wild one, because any of those fish that I catch at, you know, other places that are stalkers, they kind of give up after 5 seconds. This guy, he fought all the way into the net. So even though he was 11 inches, but
they're beautiful with the par mark still on them. They just have such a unique color to them. They're beautiful.
Where'd you go, Carl?
I went to Lane Springs.
Lane Springs.
Where Terry has caught.
That's my favorite place in the whole world because they have fish there.
Because they have fish Terry catches.
That's right.
Well, I went down and I waited a little bit, and I didn't really, I kept missing them, and I went down past this one log. I figured there might be a fish under there, and I casted a blue wing olive right up to it, and didn't really get him to come up anything. And then so I worked downstream, and about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes later, this big old brown came up slapping up out of the water. I could see his orange yellowish color. You know, he was big enough you could see him, and he was slapping something, and I figured he probably had his lunch or saw me, so he never came back. So
that's awesome.
So, but, yeah, I only caught one the whole day, but I probably missed, I'm not lying, I probably missed 15 fish. And a lot of it was probably just because of technique. When I would get a good presentation and a good rollover, I would get a look at it or a strike or something at it, you know. But if it was sloppy and whatever, you know, they're not very forgiving fish over there. So, but it was fun. So that's Carl's report for the week.
It's a beautiful, and I really, just with how you kind of walk in and all of a sudden it opens up to the river. It's a beautiful site, very well maintained, and yeah, that's a lot of fun. But congratulations, because I think your last fishing report was a little dry on the Niagara.
It was very dry on the Niagara. It was pathetically dry.
Amy, you can talk a little more about what kind of things Ben's hoping he can get some volunteers to help out and around with?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the Vets Fish Free, and I've sent out an email, and again, if you're able to go, that's great. This is a little bit different, and you guys know me. This has been it's been a project in the makings, and it's taken, you know, the last 3 years basically to build up with the Vets Fish Free for the Missouri Department of Conservation. And it was something where, knowing that we would not be at that phase, you know, hopefully even in another week, we might be at phase 3, which allows 10 people to gather for the day. But kind of trying to be preemptive on that. I reached out to Ben. They are able to do that. He had a big meeting. Yes, MDC wants to do the vets fish free, and they're still going to proceed with the kids fish free and the ladies fish free for this year. Looks a little bit different, but I figured with kind of where we were and not knowing where we were even, 6-8 weeks ago, I reached out to TU. And so the Trout Unlimited here is under kind of new leadership and has some good energy to it. You guys have met Lewis Wittenberg, and he's actually now on the board with the TU here for Gateway. And they are able to bring in some volunteers as well. And so on Friday, it will look similar for folks who were able to attend Bennett and the other ones. So on Friday, if you're able to be down there, if you want to stand up near the store and hand out tags, that's great. If not, kind of got that covered because it's just not that hard. And if you want to go fish, then take advantage of that part of it. On Saturday then, so we'll start off doing tags again in the morning, and again, go fish. It's something where it's not really necessary. You get, a couple hundred people coming up, but there's nothing, it's not like trying to check people out at a store. So it's, we don't ask for anything. We just keep handing tags if they're a veteran. They'll have zone 2 flagged off, and it's about 100 yards, and they basically just put up the safety tape, and that's the area for vets only. And then anybody with family, or all 3 zones are still open, people can go fish. In the past, we've offered fly tying, casting, help on the water, and so it kind of gives folks an introduction to. And right now they've confirmed 4 people coming in on Saturday to also help with that part of it. If there's anybody who wants to help on that side, great, can definitely do that. I'll bring about 6 program rods just so that nobody else has to, and then just leave them and I'll pack them up. But I figure if you want to go do that, if not, just come down, visit, hang around, and definitely go fish. So it's not a formal ask because it's not under Project Healing Waters. I have had John, I don't know if he's on yet, but we were going to hold our casting competition at Bennett last April. And so it was something that was canceled because of the pandemic, and some folks had credits, so they're able to get a rain check and use that for this coming on the 17th. If you want to come in early, if you want to come down there and stay, it's not anything formal. And actually, as Steve and I were coming back from Bennett yesterday, I said, I'm actually going to leave this more on the organic side. And that's not a very comfortable word for me. That if you want to be there and you want to do, then great, hang around, do that. But if not, visit with other vets, go fish, go, just see each other. We can do that outside. They are going to set up the big 30 by 60 tent. And we're still talking about as far as what we want that to look like, tables, chairs. We don't want a real gathering point. There will be no food provided by Project Healing Waters or Independent or TU. So there's no chili, no nothing, BYO everything. We're not even going to do water. We kind of talked about doing that. We talked about doing coffee like we've done in the mornings before too. And we're just steering clear of it. Everybody wants to make sure that we don't make the front line, of anybody's paper. So again, it's not something that's technically a Project Healing Waters because we're not able to reimburse you for your hotel or your gas going down. And we also, the other part is that a lot of folks have gotten vaccinated and feel comfortable being out, plus you'll be outside. So if we want to gather, on Friday night or Saturday night around somebody's campfire, I'm all open for that too. It's mostly social on that side. It'll be good to see everybody.
Yeah, could you do me a favor, Amy? Could you send me the contact info for that TU chapter, or are they just
Yep.
the gateway to you? Yeah,
It's the Gateway crew. And so it's Lewis Wittenberg, the tall guy who has the Jeeps that shows up he was at Healing Set. Well, you guys might have been out of town last year with Healing Saturday, but he shows up and he's got the Jeeps. He moved here from the East Coast. But yes, I will absolutely put you in contact with Dan Rash, who's also one of our volunteers. He's with TU, but he's also with Smallmouth Alliance. So we've got a lot of crossovers on this, and I will send that. And in fact, I'll send it out to everybody. And that way, if you want to contact Lewis directly, you guys can. Of course, they're looking just like we want, our volunteers and participants. They like the support of membership as well. And they do
Yeah,
a great job. They did the
I joined TU, but they always throw me into some oak, whatever club and off of Chicago, someplace up there because I'm in Illinois, and it's
I
like,
guess so.
really, I'm going to drive
They-
3 hours to,
No, they have done a great job, and Lewis came in, so he was the membership person at his previous place on the East Coast, and he will tell you all about that. But they came in and they basically revamped all of their treasure all the way through for the Gateway TU. They did the vertebrate. I'm probably not saying it correctly, but they did the box planting at Westover on the brown with the brown trout eggs. And it took, there's fry now in Westover of brown trout. So they were able to do that. They've got videos of that happening, and they're actually hatching and all kinds of crazy things. So instead of doing all these random studies that they previously were doing on some warm water, not as specifically spring fed. And so those boxes and all that study was not working. But they did this, and this is really exciting. Westover, where we've been, and so it's a private area, and so they have a little bit more control to make sure these areas are safe and nobody's walking through them and different things too. So similar to what they did down at in Cotter with the Bonneville. So it's kind of but these guys are. I love what they're doing. I am so happy to see this as far as just the different side of it. It's not. It just has a real good feel for it. But yep, I will send, and I can send to all of you. And so you'll get Lewis's information and then kind of their information with, and I'm a member of TU on the national level. And so I don't see the local TU newsletter. Steve is a member on the local, and so he gets the local newsletter. So again, kind of crossing over on that. Just so that we don't miss anything, but they're doing great. They just did a kids fish free day on Saturday, April 3rd at Westover with TU. So had a really nice turnout for that too. And no, I wasn't there. I just waved as I drove past. My fishing report, I fished Merrimack on Saturday and it made me work. We went down there because we did the mom visit, and then we went to St. James and went there, and then left early in the morning on Sunday morning, went down to Bennett. But Merrimack put me through the test. We're talking 30 plus flies, and everybody around. I didn't see another fly fisherman in the park, but I cannot remember the last time I fished in one of the parks on a Saturday, and it was families galore. It was a gorgeous 75-degree day and just absolutely perfect. I think probably at the end I had 3 trout. So, but Bennett treated me well, and I actually have a little video too because I was catching serious all day on dries. So anybody coming down on the 17th, practice up on your caddis. And then I had a couple of huge, nice ones. I just actually gave away my fish earlier today. Sorry, Les, I didn't know you wanted some. But it was something where it was kind of fun because they were hammering great big stimulators, and it was just fun. Nice size, good, healthy looking trout. So that's my fishing report. But Les, are you on to do some? Oh, look at you with all this. And now I got to call Chris. Is he on?
He's on.
Ah, yay. Okay. The
Yep,
one who wants
I'm
to
here.
see. There. See, we got the stacker and then we got the stacky. All right, Les, it's all your show.
Well, Chris, are you wanting to learn how to stack or spin your hair?
I don't
What
really
are you
know.
trying to do?
Like, I guess make like the poppers and all that stuff or whatever it is. I can't think of what it's called.
So basically like a Dahlberg diver popper.
Yeah.
So something like that.
Yes, that's it.
Okay. So yeah, that's that would be stacking method. Were you on when Joe Jackson was on the call?
Yeah,
And
actually I was. I had actually been meaning to reach out to him because he said he would do like a little Zoom thing with me too.
right. So that's the same method that he was showing. So I'm obviously not as refined as he is, but anyway, so the difference is with stacking deer hair, you're actually taking each like each pinch of deer hair, you're taking kind of like a number 2 pencil size, and you're taking that amount and you're putting it on top of the hook shank, cinching it down in the center of it, and then packing it, which I'll show you in a minute. And what you end up doing is you just keep stacking layers and layers on top of each other, and you keep packing, and then it builds the mass of the fly, and it'll actually, depending on how tight you actually pack it, will determine the buoyancy, how much water it actually absorbs, that kind of thing. Because if you pack it real tight, no water's actually going to get in between the deer hair, and so it'll just be like rock solid. If you leave it a little bit loose, water will be able to get in there and it'll actually swell up a little bit, that kind of thing. And it has to do with buoyancy, stuff like that. So with like the Dahlberg divers, poppers, any of that kind of fly, what you'll want to start off with is similar to this, like your tail type materials. You can use, in this, we've got some schlappen or saddle hackle, which are these feathers that have kind of a natural bend to them. And in the water, they'll kind of sway like a little tail. You got some crystal flash in here. You have marabou, and that, all of this right here creates the tail. And then you have like the collar right here, which kind of brings water when it's going in the water. The collar, I actually cause it to do different actions depending on how you have the collar trimmed and everything. And then you have the rest of the body and the head, some legs. But when you're stacking deer hair, what you want to do, especially on the tail, you want to create almost like a dam or a base at the tail end of the hook shank, something that you can actually push against, pack the deer hair against. Because if you don't build anything right there, when you use your like packer, you're gonna take this and pack deer hair like this against it, and if you don't have anything there, you're just going to keep pushing the deer hair off the shank of the hook. So it helps you out to keep the material on there as well. So I started off with some marabou in the tail. I'm going to start building the base. Got a couple. These are grizzly hackle feathers. They have a natural curves. I usually put there's a shiny side and a dull side on the feathers. I usually put the shiny side on the outside. And that's more of usually the curve will happen that way too. But it really depends on the feather that you're using. So I'm just going to tie these on both sides of the hook shank. And the thread I'm using is actually is GSP. You gotta be careful with that because the GSP has a coating on it that will clog up your bobbins, so you'll have to clean them out every so often. Or use something like, was it Simperfly uses, they make nano silk, which I think does it a little bit less or not at all. So. So we got those in there, got Marabou. I'm gonna throw in some Crystal Flash, just to give it a little bit of flash. That kind of attracts fish and also irritates them at the same time. And a lot of times that's what you're actually wanting to do is piss them off so they'll attack your fly, because a lot of times they're just not even hungry. If you can't get a fish to bite by presenting it like a normal, just smack it in the head with a fly and it'll end up pissing them off and they'll eat it. Usually they'll attack it with some force too. That's actually what I did with my first trout at Westover, was couldn't get them to bite by just presenting it to them. So basically stuck it up in front of their face for a while and just held it there until it pissed them off enough and they just went for it. Ended up catching them. Okay, so we got the flash, we got some color going on. All right. So what I'm gonna do now is we got some deer hair belly, which got red, blue, and white. So what I'm gonna do, kind of what I got right here is build this back side of the collar just to kind of give it a little bit of a flare out above this, and still building a little bit of a dam right there. So let's see. When you're cutting deer hair, can you guys see that? You want to cut it as close to the hide as possible. And you definitely want some good scissors. You have to cut through, all the underfur and that kind of stuff. And the underfur is stuff you don't want in there. And a good tool to have for that is actually a flea comb. They sell like bone combs and stuff like that that's anti-static and everything, but it'll actually get the little fuzz out, if you can see right there on the comb. Got all that underfur out of this. And this one I'm not too concerned about the using my deer stacker to make it all straight and uniform. So I'm just going to take this bunch, put it right here on top of the hook shank. One loose wrap, two loose wraps. And when I'm going to pinch it, I'm going to pinch it on the sides, because when you, depending on what you want the hair to do, is where you pinch how you pinch the hair. So if you want the deer hair to flare vertically and vertically up and down, you pinch it on the sides and it'll flare up on top of the hook shank. If you're wanting to do more of a horizontal flare, you would pinch on top and the bottom of the hair, and it'll actually flare to the sides and horizontally. and you can also, you want to crank down on the deer hair, and you'll learn eventually how much strength it actually needs, because deer hair will go till you actually cut it in half. And once you start seeing pieces kind of fly out of your stack, that means your thread is actually starting to cut the deer hair, and that's about as hard as you want to go, is right before that. And eventually you'll learn just the amount of strength that requires.
Hey, Les.
Yeah.
You don't have any picture up right now. It's just black screen.
Oh, what happened? It just happened?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Dead battery. Well, that's not gonna work. Well, I have to do a rain check because my only battery on this just died on me.
Don't buy any lotto tickets tonight.
All right.
I don't gamble. It's a waste of money.
Right.
But
That's
one thing
my
what
time
I
money
said
there.
in terms of that, working with that hair, Chris, if you haven't tried it yet, and I'm new at it too, I just got a small, patch working from it, trying to trying to cut the hair off being difficult because as working around the edges where the whole thing had been clipped out. And so right along the edge where they had cut the whole hide, you had a lot of hair that was already kind of cut halfway through. You didn't have the full length. I ended up going around the edges of that patch with my scissors, cutting out those shorter hairs where I had all full length hair. Then when I wanted to take a new patch, because you can tell from when Les showed that, to get a bunch and keep trimming it from the edge so you keep a nice clean area that you're cutting off from. I could get a bunch, get my scissors right at the base and cut. Whereas if I hadn't cleaned out that the stuff around the edges, I'd get a handful, a whole bunch of half length fibers, and it just made it more difficult. For me, it was easier to just go around that edge, trim out those that had already been partially cut so that the whole patch was left with nothing but full length hair. Then when I wanted to grab something and cut it off, I knew I had all full length stuff.
Okay, this might not be as clear as the other camera, but at least I can somewhat show you, continue to show
No,
you.
that's perfect, Les. And I think on that one that you're on right now, so that's an autofocus. So just
Yeah.
if you can go slow or stop in between stages, and it'll zoom back in and focus for us. But
Yeah,
the clarity is great.
okay. Yeah, the other one I had is my wife's camera, that her big Canon camera that I manual focus. So
I was
fortunately,
all teed up. I was going to have you walk me through it. So yeah, I put on this huge monster hook going,
man,
okay,
you even got a 60-degree shank too.
I do.
Trying to make a double drunken disorderly, aren't you?
I was all ready for the game in case you need to call me up, but you go ahead because you're all ready.
Okay. So started with the back collar. I just flared this one on top of the hook shank, and then did a couple wraps in the front. Pushed all this back, did a couple wraps in front of it. And so let's see what else I want to do here. So that's really all I'm gonna do on this one. I think, yeah. So that's gonna give me my dam to start pushing stuff against. So now what I want to do, I'm gonna build the actual collar part. If you remember, let's see, yeah. So this part right here, that's gonna be the collar. We can do that multiple colors. Like this one's got blue on the back side. It's actually got a little stripe of white in the middle, and then it goes to a red. You can do whatever colors you want with whatever materials you actually have. With the collars, you want to usually stack it just a little bit pretty loose. You try to find some of the longer deer hair that you have, because you kind of want the collar to be a little longer. And it really depends on the fly, and it's all personal choice too. But a collar is used to disperse the water, to give you a little bit of a different action. So I think the longer you can get your hair, the better, the more room you have to play with it and trim, because you can trim way too much. And you basically take a razor blade to your fly and start all over again, which I've done that many a times. And every time you use a stack of deer hair, you use the brush, because it'll get a ton of stuff out of your stack. Shorter hairs, longer hairs, under fur, that kind of thing. So I'm gonna take this stack, I'm gonna put it on top of the white that I already did. Same thing, 2 loose wraps. Try not to get any other hair pinched off in it. And I'm going to do the same method of flaring it to the side by pinching on the sides. And if you want to see what happens when you pinch too much, see that's actually, see how that hook is bending and it's still not breaking? I mean, you can crank it down and see now it's starting to come out. So now I'm to that point where it actually is starting to cut the hair. So, but you can almost, bend a cheap hook shank when you're doing deer hair. And hopefully you got a good jaw on your vise, or else you can pull your hook right out of the vise too. So. Yeah, it kind of messed it up a little bit, but all right. So I think I got enough there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a blue and white all the way up the shank. So just take, and this is see here. Yeah, it's pretty short hair. So
like in this whole process, you're using belly hair, right, from the deer?
Yeah, this is all belly hair. Obviously it's dyed, so
Yeah.
but they, depending on where you get it from, time of year, that kind of thing, it gives you a different consistency, length. Also, the hair is actually crimped too, because deer hair is hollow for most of the part. So in this, I'm actually going to put in the stacker and give it a couple taps. That kind of gives you a uniformed edge. And you just grab it out of there. And with this, when you start stacking, typically you want both edges to match. So the ends of your deer hair are all different lengths. They're pointed, that kind of thing. So you cut the other side to match. So and that's, it might look like a little bit more than a number 2 pencil, but that's the type of stacks that you'll end up working with.
Okay.
So then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put that at a 45 on the hook shank and you always want to do a couple loose wraps. And then once you get that where you want it, then do your pinch. I'm still pinching on the sides because I want it to go vertically. And so there's your next flare. And I want to keep building, so I'm going to do 2 stacks of that on the same, basically one on top of each other, just to make it a little bit fuller. Then this is very, I guess, monotonous. It's same process pretty much the whole way. And it makes a mess.
Oh yeah.
So then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just take that other pinch, put it right on top of what I did, work my thread through, so I'll try not to tie any of the strands down. Do the loose wraps, pinch on the side again, and flare like that. So now it's a little bit fuller. And then what you want to do is go to the front of that stack. We're ready to move forward. Try to pull as much as you can back. Take your thread and do a couple wraps out front and kind of push them back into it. So then there's different packer tools. This just happens to be the, I don't remember what it's called. Yeah, I don't remember which one this is, but it's actually made out of steel. Some of them that I've used, they'll slip. And when you're dealing with, this is a size 1/0 hook, and it's got a very nice point on it. And if the hair packer actually slips, you end up poking yourself with the hook, and it doesn't feel very well. So we got that packed in there. Now we're going to switch to white, because I'm going to make just basically lines of different color moving up the shank of the hook. And it's the same process over and over again. And you can actually, you can mix the hair, kind of do like some speckled type colorings, you know, any kind of color scheme you want to do. Same process, 45, couple loose wraps, pinch, pull down, and it flares. Comb out your hair. Try to make it as even as possible. Take your next stack, put it on top. Work your thread. Pinch. Flare it out. Then take that back. A lot of people will actually take some super glue or head cement and put a drop right in front of it every single time they do a set to keep it from moving anywhere. If you cinch it down enough, it actually won't move on you. And depending on how hard you're actually packing it, it won't move on you either. You have any questions so far at all?
No, I mean, you're explaining everything that I had questions about, like the super glue between after each one. Or head cement or whatever. I was thinking about that too. I was wondering that, and you said that, so you answered the question I had.
Okay. Because this process is the same over and over again until you get to the eye of the hook right before it.
Maybe 200.
There
Less trimming the tips of the hair a little bit just to keep the length a little more even as you work it.
Yeah, on the tips, just because they go to a point and they're all different, especially when you're using a hair stacker. It only makes it even on that one side. And so then the points are all different. And that's typically where you trim it, is on the points of the deer hair. And you're obviously, and that's more to keep it uniform to start off with, because you're going to end up trimming this however, into whatever shape you want it to be. So, but you don't really know how much you're actually going to trim off till you have all the hair on there and you take a look how it looks as far as stacked. And because you might only take just a smidge off of it with a razor blade, or using just a pair of scissors to trim it. And after you put it in the stacker, you tend to not want to move your stack of hair as much as possible, because the more you move it, the more it'll actually get out of being even with each other. Oh, let's see that. Too much.
What size hook are you working on there, Les?
This is a 1/0. It's a 1/0 Gamakatsu B10S. So that's a big hook.
You look for an extra heavy shank, or of that size, they're pretty heavy all the time.
Yeah, the B10S is there, and that's mainly what I'll use. Because I got B10Ss for size, let's see, 2/0 up to size 6. So it actually goes down, but I buy them in bulk from Gamakatsu for 100, 100 pack of hooks each time. So it's cheaper that way, instead of buying, a pack of, I think it's a pack of 10 maybe from the fly shops for quite a bit of money. So just one way of saving money, I guess, especially if you're using a lot of them. But you can obviously, use any size that you want, but I would, especially if you're doing poppers, divers like that, because you're going to be targeting usually either smallmouth or largemouth bass with them. So you'll want something with a decent shank on it. That way they don't break on you. And you're going to be tugging on it quite a bit, stacking the hair on there. And you don't want to break it. Rather pull it out of the vise before I broke the hook shank. So,
Roger, to give you kind of an idea on what size hooks
yep, there you go.
talking about, they're the different packages like this, and you're talking $7 from the fly shop, if not 9. You get 25 of them. So if you can find a wholesaler, the difference is because when you start playing on this and you're pulling it, you've got to have it just secure in your vise and not giving you, it should just boing, but not bend crazy and reshape the hook. But so the 2s, and then when they go into 1s, and then the 1/0 would be just with the dash and the 0. when you're doing the double articulated. So you might start with one size and then step down for your back hook. But they're big. Well, here's my bobbin in comparison. They're big hooks. When Les was talking about with your fingers and hitting these hooks are so unforgiving. We joke about having Band-Aids, but here's the whole pack. Or you can get the bleed stop. So you literally impale yourself. I found that even putting taking off the erasers off of the pencils and putting an eraser over the end of this, but somehow protecting, because with like what Les is doing too. So you're constantly pulling back on that hair and then you're restacking it. And I'm making a different fly, but the same thing. So you're trying to pull back, you're trying to get in there, and you're constantly pushing like this. And so you end up, and this is why the fingers look like this. These things are just lethal. But yeah, having some bleed stop or having some really good Band-Aids is kind of handy. Or you can do like Les does and just add a little blood to every fly you tie. You know,
Custom coloring.
I mean,
kinda
it's
goes there.
already red, white, and blue.
Yeah,
You never
it's
know.
just coloring. So he wouldn't need all that red, but these hooks add up. And when you go buy, and I think right now Game Changers, which are like the minnow style and some of the poppers, these can go upwards of $20 per fly. But when you see the amount of time, and again, it's a tedious process. It's very much the same over and over and over again, and you're trying to get that material in there. It's a work of art. And so if you like tying them, great, have fun with it, continue those, because there's some amazing work out there. But if it's something where after about the third time you're going, you know what, I don't really need to do that, then I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that want to buy your deer belly hair. So let us know before you start selling your deer belly hair on eBay.
Don't say that 10 times in a row, Amy.
I don't think I could. So but it gives you a different idea. And then there's also partridge hooks. I mean, there's a lot of different styles as far as the hooks. What you're looking for is just that big meaty shank. It depends on if you like more. I go with the horizontal eye as opposed to a downturn eye, just for what the connection is. But any of the fly shops, they'll help you out. They'll be happy to sell you streamer stuff, especially at Feathercraft. Go there. Those guys are streamer guys.
So you don't get too many inadvertent bluegill hooks on these.
Not well, you can spear one with them, I think. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you can go right through them. But yeah, I'm thinking a bluegill would look at, they're fun. They're actually we've seen such creative stuff like from Denny and Joe Jackson. And I mean, there's some amazing things you can do with it. The double edge razor with these is essential, and kind of getting comfortable with using that. Scissors, you can be going at it and it's like a bad haircut, because if you keep on cutting and you cut too far, you can't go backwards. So start out small, start out a little bit at a time, walk away from it, come back to it. But what happens is if you start trimming it off too much, you might as well, like Les said, just cut it all off and start all over again. A little tiny one of the dust buster kind of things is great to help keep your area kind of clean, because it is a messy fly too. But they're a lot of fun, and especially when you get to the
cordless
point
back hanging out right
cutting it.
next to my table, because my wife is a clean freak. I was like, this is my table, leave me alone. Clean it up.
I went looking for double-edged razor
Check.
blades. Couldn't find them in the local Walmart, but yeah, trying to do those little collars I showed you on this midge, just trimming those with the scissors. You really kind of had to approach the hair from against the grain. It's not where you can just trim it back like you can with the razor into a nice curve, you know, with the grain. It just, the scissors won't grab it. So you kind of have to tack from the side and try and get the shape. But I can see where the double-edged razor blade, if you bend it into a bit of a curve, makes.
Well, they got a holder for it too, like a one of these right here.
Yeah. And,
Yeah, I
and
got.
Chris, honestly, just practice a couple ways, both, and see which one you like, because I haven't heard anybody who really loves those.
Mhm.
But figure out what works best in your hand. And
Yeah.
because you want it for that whole ergonomics, you want to be able to see, but when you take the blades, and you should be able to bend it already, and
Mhm.
just all you're doing is one pass up on the deer hair, like what Les is doing. So you just take it on the ends, and if you don't feel comfortable with that, tape one side of it. But it is something where, again, just see what you feel comfortable with, because it's one pass up and that should cut. The other thing is they make, for what Roger was talking about, there's actually, and they're called tweezer scissors. And so it's a really fine blade, but you can come in, and I was working on some other stuff, but you can actually come in behind and kind of help shape on the collar part of it too. And again, there's a lot of different tools. Watch with that, because just like using a straight edge razor for men, when you're shaving with that, you have to make sure it's secure in there. Because otherwise that razor blade's going to pop as you start to go. So just like a razor in a razor blade, just make sure it's secure in there. And I think it's a fasten down, you like twist it, and then it should be
Yeah.
secure in there.
Yeah, you
Yep.
twist it and it kind of brings the things together and holds it tight.
Yep.
I got a different hair packer. I got this little Stefano or whatever.
I
it
have that
is.
one as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was gonna get the one that he's
So
using.
it has
Yeah,
so it has
this
a
one's
small end and a
actually a
large end
Renzetti.
on the. Yeah. He goes for the Gucci high dollar one.
Oh, that's
With no
probably
comment.
gonna be the next thing I get, because I don't know if this will. I'm pretty sure it'll work on a little bit bigger hooks, but you know that other one for sure will. So
You've got, yeah, on the one that you just showed, because I have that one too. So you were
yeah,
shopping on Amazon.
it's got a hole on both ends for,
Correct.
I guess, packing on like smaller flies.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I have found on, once you start getting up to the 2/0, you're just, well, and I mean, they're not really, you might as well go with the size number 4 regular hook, but it's not going to clear the hook eye. And that would be my complaint on it. And it doesn't have any give to it. So where the one Les is using, you can actually feel the hair move.
Yeah.
Versus this one, you can't feel the hair move. You just see it, but you can't really, and you want to create that thread dam to also help keep that hair back. So as you're tying that and you're holding it in and you're using that, and then come back in and just two turns around, and that's enough of a thread dam.
Okay.
So Les, we're gonna see you finish this one off and cut it all and make it look pretty.
Probably not. It's already 1 after 7. So basically,
Tie it off and cut it. Show us how you do that. He's like,
Another
"Why
one I
waste a
want to
good
tie
fly?"
too, though, is like you mentioned with the Game Changer. I think those things look so cool.
they actually make
They
a,
are.
you can do a Game Changer crawdad. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
They
I'm
use
interested
those
in those too.
articulated. Use the shanks, and
Trout's
maybe.
cool. I like bass.
maybe I'll get the materials for that and tie it one week.
Well,
I need to
that's
tie
what I was
some of
working
them.
on. Yep, that's what I was working on while the video was on. So
Let's see.
got a little bit. I don't know if is the camera on there.
Yeah, I can see. I see you picked up the tail of it.
So, yep. So it's all, and I've got just a smaller hook on here too. And then this actually was all white, and this is all marker on the top. So I try to make it look like a smaller fry. It's different materials that you use. All my other ones are upstairs, but Lois, she's one of our contractors with Project Healing Waters, and she held up a fly and she goes, "Can you tie these?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's a game changer." She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Will you send me a couple of them?" I go, "Yeah." What do I get in exchange? She goes, me helping you on the computer. I'm like, "Okay, that works for me."
Deal.
So yeah, I'm tying up a couple for her for Colorado. But they are fun. They have a completely different makeup. You tie all the way on these little shanks and you're adding material in, and then it's articulated.
Yeah, that's what I think is really cool about it. Like a lot of the like when you're the regular fishing, not fly fishing, you got those minnows that where they're segmented like that and swim.
Yep.
Yeah, those things work great.
Yeah, this one's all the way, except I haven't done the eyes yet, and I'm not thoroughly. I'm actually sending her one to say how not to tie one, because you're not supposed to, like, this one was actually sitting in the junk pile, but you shouldn't see the connections at all, and you should see it. And so then I was adding more material, but you should not see this. It should be a seamless where all of this material flows right into, and you shouldn't see your joints at all. And so this was actually one that I tied a few years ago, and I pulled it back out of the junk one. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to send that out there so she can dissect it and say how not to tie a fly. But they're fun. They're time consuming. And honestly, to me, I find them kind of boring because it's the same. You're wrapping material. And the only fun part of it is when you actually get to cut that whole thing off and color it.
That's your 1950s.
Other than that, you're just well, and I mean, you tie all this and it's all this part, like the whole thing, like what Les was doing too. And so it's all this material. And so until you get to that point where you're actually shaping it to look like a bait fish, then it starts getting fun. But all that, it's just packing the material on and packing the material. The difference is instead of what material where Les was using the deer hair, this is all on a wire, and it's called a wire, a dubbing. What are these called? What are these called, Les? We spend too much money on them.
What's that? That's
the dubbing.
Is it the polar dubbing or something?
No,
it's these are from the
what is it?
Gucci section.
Yeah, EP fiber, EP brush.
Yep. So these EP brushes, so they come in a pack like this.
Oh, okay. I've seen
Yeah.
those.
Well, and the problem is, again, you know, it's like the rest of this trick with fly tying. These can get very expensive because you can't, they're not ones you want to practice on because by the time you spent $10 on this, you don't want to be cutting it off. Like what Les was saying is cut it off. You know, this fly, when you look at it, you're like, okay, that's about $10 worth of material in there. So you don't want to be practicing, but they come in a variety of colors, and they come, and what is great with these is they have a wire through the middle. And so what they've done is like our dubbing loops where you layer in and then you just spin it. And I'm sure Roger has some sort of drill or could set this up. I know they sell these for about $65 a piece to make these things that are these dubbing, and they just twist and twist and twist that wire. And all they're doing is layering the material inside that. And so that's all you're doing is layering that over and over and over to build these flies. So it is, again, not the most interesting. They are really cool the way they look, but it is, and there's a lot of lighter materials that it's not so heavy to throw them. They don't absorb so much water, but they have some great action to them too. So there's a lot of, it's a trap. there's a lot of stuff to shop and fish for, but
my wife keeps getting on to me for buying stuff.
Yeah, Les is on the razor.
I'm watching. I got him pinned. I'm just listening to you.
Oh. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for you, Chris.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm gonna probably trying this as soon as we're done.
When you're doing that backside of the collar, you just gotta be careful that you don't, I mean, anytime you're using the razor, you don't go too far because you'll end up cutting everything off. And really this isn't very well. When you do the sculpting, you kind of want to take your time. But you kind of get the idea.
Yeah.
With the patterns. And if you want to change, like this one right here, where there's a little thin red and the blue. Actually put red on the bottom and then put a stack of blue on top of it, and it'll actually give it different colors. And you can actually do if you have some long belly hair and you want to say like do some spots in there in the you know, in different colors, if you want to do little almost like little
Like
eyeballs or
camouflage something.
yeah, what you can do is so let's see if I can real quick just
Isn't this where Amy says you use a marker?
no, well you could I guess, but if you
I
have
have a whole bin of them.
so if you have some, you know, longer pieces, what you can do is take how, depending on how big you want that spot to be, you actually sit there and twist it. And then almost like what you do with rubber legs, how you wrap it around your thread.
Mm-hmm.
You do that same thing with this. It's a little harder because it's smaller and it's a little harder to work with. But what you can do is you wrap it around just like a rubber leg, and you get so your line threads through there,
Mm-hmm.
and you actually place this part wherever you want that dot to be. And so you'll cinch that down just like where you would a rubber leg. And once you cinch that down, when you let go, that's going to flare up all together. And then you just have a trim. And so you'd have, with this, you'd have like a dot of white in a other color.
That's pretty cool.
And you can do that wherever you want to, wherever your thread's at, you can do that. Obviously that's, you know, a little bit more work, and then you end up getting, you know, a desk like that.
Oh my God, my
and,
wife would have
you
a
know.
fit. Oh my gosh.
But
oh yeah, this is gonna be interesting.
yeah, you definitely, if you can, invest in almost like a trash can bag that clips to your vise or to a table or something, and have it right in front of you, almost kind of like straddling it. That way,
So,
when you are cutting and stuff, you can just brush it right off in to the can.
so do you find it easier? I seen you're cleaning it up in your hand. Is it easier to do it that way, or is it leave it in the vise and trim it with the razor?
I always take it out, just because I have more control and you can move it different directions that you want. And no matter how much you actually do right, so like this, if I went and got this wet, I guarantee you where I've trimmed like the bottom and it's nice and smooth, if you get it wet, there'll end up being a couple hairs that'll come out and pop out of nowhere. It's pretty crazy. A lot of guys say don't do the bottom, don't shave the bottom until you do the rest of it, just because it might get crooked or something might move, and then your whole bottom where you've shaved it flat actually will be all messed up.
Okay.
And
Well, that makes sense.
you want to trim as close as possible to the hook shank without hitting the thread, because you can't hit the thread and then you're starting to fly all over. But you don't want to lose your gap on the hook, or else there's just no point in using it.
Right, because nothing
Yep.
can hide it.
But yeah, this, I mean, obviously this needs to be trimmed more, a little bit thinner. It's kind of a loose pack, but with the amount of time. So, but yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was cool.
Great idea.
So you normally kind of work your way down on your trimming because it stiffens up as they get shorter. So you figure you're going to make 2 or 3 cuts to get down to your final contour all the time, or you try and come pretty close right off the bat?
I try to get the main shape right off the bat, especially depending on the fly that you're doing, because like a Dahlberg diver has that that specific like shape that they use. So like right in the front, it's almost like a kind of like a wall, but then let's see, and then like on the hook shank that Amy was showing earlier. This is on, it's not as, well, yeah, that might be a, yeah, that's a 60. So that's a 60-degree hook shank like what Amy had in her vise earlier. And so this is the head of a a drunken disorderly. So this is all deer hair with the collar, but this hook shank's at a 60-degree angle, so it gives that bend to the head, and so it provides a different action. And it just depends. This is packed pretty tight, and also has some like UV resin on top of it, kind of to preserve it a little bit, and also give it a little bit harder of almost like a paddle.
Like
to
a
be used.
kind of.
Yep, exactly. And they actually do sell those plastic paddles that you can put on and create your own crankbait type flies. I got some somewhere. They're a little hard to work with, but they do work and they do have them. But yeah,
It's crazy all the stuff they have for this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
well, that's where most of the bass flies come from. Is they go, they used to see all the the crankbaits and jigs and stuff that
Yeah, I
were
got some
working
like that.
for bass tournaments and stuff, and they're like, well, how can I make take feathers or hair or something like that and create the same pattern and get the same type of actions, and that's where a lot of these come from. So
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm excited to try it. So I really appreciate the video tonight.
yeah, no problem. And definitely if Joe offered to get on a call with you, I would definitely take that up. I've taken quite a few, watched him quite a few times and talked to him, spent some time with him, and he definitely knows his stuff. And if he's willing to spend the time with you, that's awesome, and you would learn a lot. He's very good.
Yeah, I've talked to him a few times. He's cool.
Yeah. All right, all. Well, that was great. Last, thank you very much. Even with the technical
Yes.
difficulties, you did a great job. And I know it takes a long time, so it's hard for all of us to stop a fly partially through and also just destroy it in the meantime to show us how to cut it. But that was great.
well.
And I think again, lots of great information. I think I know there was a request as far as talking about thread on one of our calls, and I'm gonna table that one for the moment, only because I recommend going to the blog site or on the internet and just Google in fly tying threads, and you'll get one that's called the Essential Tire. Great thing. It was 5 pages long. It's way more information than you need, but it does talk about what Les had said as far as some of the GSPs that will clog up with your, and I pulled out the other day and I use welding tips to actually clean out mine with the GSP, because it really gunks up that you can't soak them out. They don't, and then all of a sudden you start tying with the white thread and your thread's black because it keeps feeding through that. But the thread topic is way more in depth, and it's kind of encyclopedia reading. So I think we're going to stick with flies for a while. We'll see if I can find more of a consolidated of what you need. But basically with the different threads, you're looking for break strength or the breaking strength on that. So there are some different sites for different material. For a lot of what we're tying, we don't need a lot of break strength. So it is something where, like these flies with the deer hair, you want the strongest thread that you almost can't pull apart in your hands. You don't want it to be something that's breaking off every time you're trying to tie in deer hair. But other than that, there's a lot of different, but I'll keep doing a little bit more on the threads. It felt like I was reading a different language when I was trying to read that today. And it reminded me of when I first started all this, and I thought, gosh, let's talk tippet. Anyway, so it was way too much information. I I think next week, anybody have any questions on any flies, anything they want to see? We'll kind of go from there, and maybe if the thread one becomes more interesting, then we can talk threads. But anybody have anything?
I have
they want
nothing.
to?
How about maybe favorite trout recipes?
To cook?
Yeah, right.
Okay. I think we have a few cooks on here. I think that would actually be a great one, Dave.
Yes.
All right, everybody start grilling.
Got to catch one.
All right,
first.
all. Well, thanks again, Les. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
And
Les.
everybody have a great
Yep,
week.
no problem.
I appreciate everybody got on here. I forgot to send out the reminder this week, so I'm all glad you guys have your calendars marked.
Well, I generally kind of forget because I don't have the memory or whatever. And but my wife's like, make sure you get on your Zoom call. So, and then now that she
Well,
is a participant or a volunteer or whatever, now she's really all over me.
and it was funny. That's why you heard me ask. I'm like, is Chris on yet? Because I can only see I can see about 4 people up on mine, but it has just the picture on who's pinned. But yeah, I was going to check with you because I thought, darn it, it all of a sudden got so late, and I thought I'm not going to send an email now to remind everybody. But I appreciate you guys remembering that it's the same bat channel every week. It doesn't change.
Yep.
All right, everybody, have a great week.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. See you guys.
See you
Thanks.
Monday.
Yeah,
Enjoy
thank
the
you.
weather.
Yeah, you too.